Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Dr. Saira Shabir. We are here for the third lecture on biomolecules, about the origin and nature of biomolecules. In today's class, we are going to discuss the origin of biomolecules and the different theories about their origin, their history, and also their properties and their function of these biomolecules. Okay. However, it is better to revise few basic definitions like biochemistry. Basically, biochemistry is the study of things such as structure and physical properties of biological molecules. They may include protein, carbohydrates, lipids, or nucleic acid, which are called as biomolecules. And not only biomolecules, but biochemistry also includes the study of mechanism of action of enzyme, the chemical regulation of metabolism, even the chemistry of nutrition, molecular basis of genetics, also the chemistry of vitamins, energy utilization in the cell, and also immune responses. Biochemistry is basically a very wide field. On the other hand, there is another term used which we call cellular pool. Basically, it is defined as the sum total of different types of biomolecules or compounds or ions present in a cell. We call when we talk about the origin of universal life, but we say that there are many theories about how this universe came into existence. The best theory about the origin of universe is what we call as Big Bang. It tells that the universe began as an incredibly hot, dense point, roughly almost 13.7 billion years ago. This theory was basically born of two observations. One thing is that scientists say that our Earth, or you can say that other galaxies are moving away from our own galaxy at a great speed in all directions. It just looked like that it had been propelled by an ancient explosive force. And the second evidence was that the scientists couldn't trace anything older than 13.7 billion years ago. So they think that this is how its age. We can say that universe is 13.7 billion years ago old. The Big Bang theory was actually not an explosion in space, as the theory name might suggest. Instead, it was the appearance of space everywhere in the universe. Scientists think that according to Big Bang theory, the universe was born as a very hot, very dense point, and it underwent an incredible growth. During this burst of expansion, we call this birth of expansion as a inflation. बेसिकली इन्फ्लेमेशन क्या है कि इसमें यूनिवर्स जो है वो एक्सपैंड करना शुरू हुई थी. एक almost it expanded or doubled in size at least almost 90 times. With expansion it became cooler and matter formed. Then almost 9 billion years ago, you can say that 9 billion years after the Big Bang, our solar system came into existence. When we talk about the origin of life coming from the universe, when we talk about origin of life, what we say that first cells are believed to come into existence by the aggregation of molecules. Existing molecules, they aggregated and they then became longer molecules, and hence it led to the formation, origin of life. Okay, with the time, level of oxygen rose and first oxygen utilizing or photosynthesizing species came into existence. And it is said that the first eukaryotes can be seen in the fossil record about 1.5 billion years ago. And then we say that all organisms other than bacteria, they are their descendants. Okay, there are many theories about the origin of life or biomolecules. Basically, one of them is RNA word theory. RNA के बारे में कहा जाता है that इसका origin जो है वो सेल से पहले था, and it subsequently जो है ना RNA it became packed within a membrane. The second theory about origin of biomolecules is O'Brien-Haldane theory. Basically इसमें क्या है कि ये biomolecule के origin के बारे में बताती हैं कि how biomolecules came into existence from non-living matter through a process of chemical evolution. Inorganic catalysts, basically they must have been used for reactions to take place. This is what they call chemical evolution, using different substances and generating different products over the course of billions of years. Again, about the theory of mica sheets, it proposes that the narrow confined spaces between the thin layer of mica. Mica is basically an inorganic material. It is found in the earth crust. So it proposes that narrow confined spaces within the thin layers of mica could have provided exactly the right conditions for the rise of first biomolecule. It effectively creates cells without membranes. Another theory published in 2009 by a group of Japanese scientists, they claims that the biomolecules have originated by the ocean impacts. Basically, scientists designed experiments to see the velocity impact. When we talk about impact means that there is a forced contact of two things together. So the velocity impact or force contact of solid carbon, nickel, water, and nitrogen. After the impact, what they did that they recovered numerous organic molecules, including fatty acids, amines, or amino acids. This suggests that organic molecules on the early Earth or primordial Earth may have arisen from such impact of meteorite. You know about meteorite, इसको हम उर्दू में शहाब भी कहते हैं. बेसिकली ये वो सॉलिड होता है जो स्पेस से ज़मीन पे गिरते हैं. देयर इम्पैक्ट विद ओशन, आई मीन मेटीरियोराइट जो है उसका इम्पैक्ट या फोर्स्ड वेलोसिटी कॉन्टैक्ट जो है वो ओशन के साथ होगा. एंड देन वी से दैट दिस ओशन इम्पैक्ट इट रिजल्ट्स इन द ओरिजिन ऑफ बायोमॉलिक्यूल. Okay. Then we say that coming to the history of biomolecules, Lavoisier, he is also known as the father of modern chemistry. He related oxidation reaction to respiratory process. Another scientist, Liebig, basically he helped organic chemistry to settle in our current society. We all know about Louis Pasteur. He worked on enzymes starting from the effect of bacteria in combination with some substances which he called ferments that time. Later these ferments were named as enzymes. Similarly, proteins were not discovered until 1926 when urease was first isolated as an enzyme, and later it was discovered that other such substances are enzymes. They are all made up of basic building block, amino acids, and we name them as proteins. Basically, there are some diseases that arise because of limited diets, like scurvy or pellagra. In 1935, vitamin B12 was found to be essential in their management. So that's how vitamins were discovered that time. In 1929, the substance adenosine triphosphate that we call as ATP, it was isolated from muscle proteins. The production of ATP was found associated with the respiratory or oxidative process in the cell. And in 1940, ATP was recognized by the scientists as common form of energy exchange in the cells. In 1869, a substance was isolated from the nuclei of pus cells that we know as in these days as DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid. And in 1944, it was regarded as a genetic material, and then later its double helix structure was proposed by Watson and Crick, and now we know about the function, that how DNA functions. Okay. Now we are going to discuss how different classes of compounds were reduced to be synthesized in prebiotic times. I mean, when we say that these biomolecules were not there on Earth, and how with time they evolved to be there. The first successful, basically we shall start with the amino acids. So when we talk about amino acid, the first successful prebiotic amino acid synthesis, it was carried out with an electric discharge and a strongly reducing model atmosphere of methane, ammonia, water and hydrogen gas. Actually, we have already discussed this experiment as Miller-Urey experiment. The result of this experiment was a large yield of racemic amino acid together with hydroxy acids, short aliphatic acids and urea. One surprising result of this experiment was the product were not random mixture of organic compounds, but rather a relatively small number of compounds, and they were believed to be, with few exceptions, the compounds were of biological significance. Means the most of the organic compounds formed after this experiment, they were very important, like there were some few known amino acids, and so we say that it was demonstrated that amino acids were not formed directly in the electric discharge, but they were the outcome of a Strecker-like synthesis. You may know about the Strecker synthesis. We shall study this one later in the slide. This synthesis, it involved aqueous phase reaction of reactive intermediates. Basically, both amino and hydroxy acids can be synthesized at high dilutions of HCN and aldehyde in a stimulated primitive ocean. So we believe that HCN was present in ocean, and also aldehydes were present in the primitive ocean. So HCN and aldehyde, they reacted together in the primitive ocean environment, and that time amino acid came into existence. The reaction rates basically depend on temperature, pH, HCN, or you can say that their reactant concentration. But basically they are rapid on geological time scale. Normally when we talk about evolution, then this is very you can say that this is very sluggish, or this is very slow phenomena. But these changes, I mean the amino acid synthesis, even when Miller-Urey experiment was done, the results were very promising, and they were very fast. So it was suggested that geologically the time scale was very fast. And even if we talk about the amino acid that were present on a meteorite surface, it almost took almost 104 years for this kind of reaction to take place. Okay, then these results, what we infer from these results is that the prebiotic environment was reducing, and because we used reducing conditions in Miller-Urey experiment, and the synthesis of building blocks of life was efficient and didn't constitute the limiting step in the emergence of life. Means the reactions were fast and they were not sluggish. So the amino acid synthesis was really facile when we compare it with the other biomolecules. Coming to the Strecker synthesis of amino acids. So if you watch closely at the bottom of the slide, then the carbonyl compound, it reacts with hydrogen cyanide, and then later it reacts with ammonia to form an amino acid. So from this equation you can also see that the Strecker synthesis of amino acid requires the presence of ammonia as well as hydrogen cyanide. So in that ancient times, you can say the prebiotic environment, it had ammonia, but how can we be certain about that, as gaseous ammonia is rapidly decomposed by ultraviolet light. During early ancient times, the absence of significant ozone layer, it would have limited ammonia's concentration. However, since ammonia is very soluble in water, we may deduce that if the primitive oceans had a pH around 8, then dissolved ammonium could have been in equilibrium with dissolved ammonia, and then we can say that ammonia was available, and then the Strecker synthesis could be the probable explanation how amino acids came into existence in the prebiotic times. So actually we can't be certain, that it is very unlikely that all the modern amino acids present today, they were present in primitive environment too. मतलब कि जितने भी अमाइनो एसिड्स जो हैं वो अभी हम मौजूद हैं, जिनको हम बहुत ज़्यादा इसेंशियल समझते हैं ऑर्गेनिक कह रहे हैं लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स के लिए, it is still unknown that they were still there in the primitive environment or not. So acrolein is one compound, you can say that if you see in the image below, acrolein can be synthesized from the reaction of acetaldehyde and formaldehyde. So this compound, it can be transformed into different amino acids upon reaction with different plausible prebiotic compounds. These compounds like ammonia, ammonium cyanide कह लें, या जो है वो हाइड्रोजन सल्फाइड कह लें, वाटर, ये जो है वो प्रीबायोटिक एनवायरनमेंट में ये वहाँ पर मौजूद थे. सो दीज बेसिक कंपाउंड्स व्हेन रिएक्टेड विद एक्रोलीन दे कैन जनरेट ग्लूटामिक एसिड और मेथियोनीन और होमोसिस्टीन और होमोसीरीन. सो दीज अमाइनो एसिड्स वर बिलीव्ड टू एग्जिस्ट इन द प्रीबायोटिक एनवायरनमेंट थ्रू दीज पाथवेज. Talking about the source of carbon for these biological molecules, or we can say amino acid, here we are talking about amino acid synthesis. So we can say that when we compare ammonia and carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide as a carbon source. We say that carbon monoxide dominated environment. It was not estimated to be very predominant in that environment. स्पार्क डिस्चार्ज एक्सपेरिमेंट्स लाइक मिलर यूरे एक्सपेरिमेंट्स जिनकी हमने पहले भी बात की है, उसमें हमने अमोनिया, कार्बन मोनोक्साइड और कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड को यूज़ किया था एज अ सोर्स ऑफ कार्बन. बट अबाउट दीज एक्सपेरिमेंट्स टू वी आल्सो हैव यूज हाइड्रोजन विद देम, सो वी obtained methane and also some amino acids as a outcome, or या कहने के as a product. In these experiments, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide are almost as good as if we use hydrogen gas too. However, if we reduce the amount of hydrogen, then carbon monoxide can't be used as a sole carbon source. Recent results basically they suggest that amino acid yields from neutral environment, they could be better than previous thought. For example, it was found that buffering the solution pH near neutral or addition of oxidation inhibitors, it can increase amino acid yield from carbon dioxide, nitrogen and water electric discharge reactions by several hundred folds. मतलब इन्होंने ये कहा है कि अगर हम जो है वो न्यूट्रल एनवायरनमेंट जो है वो बेहतर है, अगर हम जो है वो पीएच को जो है वो न्यूट्रल रेंज में रखें या हम बफरिंग यूज़ करें न्यूट्रल पीएच रेंज में, देन द एक्सपेरिमेंट रिजल्ट विद द सेम कार्बन मोनोक्साइड, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और मीथेन सोर्स से जो हमारे पास अमाइनो एसिड बन रहे हैं, तो उसमें हमारे पास यील्ड जो हैं वो ज़्यादा हो जाती हैं अमाइनो एसिड्स की. Okay, then the amino acid diversity produced in methane experiments, basically these are similar to those reported by Miller with carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. However, glycerine, or you can say such type of amino acids, they were dominant amino acid with little other amino acids like alanine as a side product. Coming to the prebiotic synthesis of nucleic acid components. Basically, in all known living organisms, genetic information is stored in DNA, which is composed of repeating units of deoxyribonucleotides, which in turn is transcribed from linear polymers of RNA, which are composed of repeating polymers of ribonucleotides. मतलब कहने का ये है कि अगर आप RNA से स्टार्ट करें तो RNA के जो स्ट्रैंड हैं वो इंफॉर्मेशन जो है वो ट्रांसक्राइब कर दी जाती है DNA में बेसिकली, और DNA का रिपीटिंग यूनिट डीऑक्सीराइबोन्यूक्लियोटाइड है, जबकि RNA का हम कहते हैं कि राइबो न्यूक्लियोटाइड जो है वो उसका रिपीटिंग यूनिट है. द डिफरेंस बिटवीन दीज इज द यूज ऑफ डीऑक्सीराइबोस इन DNA एंड राइबोस इन RNA. यही मैं आपको भी बता रही थी. इन यूरासिल जो है वो नाइट्रोजनस बेस है जो RNA में यूज़ होती है, एंड थायमिन इन DNA. प्रपोजल्स फॉर द एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ एन RNA वर्ड के बारे में हमने जो है वो पहले भी थेरीज में बात की थी. दैट अ पीरियड ड्यूरिंग अर्ली बायोलॉजिकल एवोल्यूशन व्हेन बायोलॉजिकल सिस्टम यूज्ड RNA बोथ एज अ कैटलिस्ट or as an informational macromolecule. We suggest that ribose may have been among the oldest carbohydrates to be employed by living beings. Although it is now noted that RNA was formed directly from the primordial soup, और कहने कि वहाँ पे प्रीमोर्डियल एनवायरनमेंट में जो कंपोनेंट्स मौजूद थे उनसे RNA जो है वो बनाया गया था, इसके बारे में अब जो है वो साइंटिस्ट बड़े डाउटफुल हो गए हैं. एक्सपेरिमेंटल जो है वो एविडेंसेस जो हैं वो फिर भी थोड़ा सा जो है वो हमें कहते हैं कि पहले जो बना था. वी कैन टॉक अबाउट द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ प्यूरिन्स और पिरिमिडीन्स एंड शुगर्स. प्यूरिन्स, पिरिमिडीन या शुगर्स की बात करते हैं. About the prebiotic synthesis of purines. Basically, the first evidence that the components of nucleic acid may have been synthesized abiotically, it was provided by a scientist named Oro in 1960, and that scientist reported that the abiotic formation of adenine, which may be considered as a pentamer of hydrogen cyanide, it forms from ammonium cyanide. The mechanism of synthesis is basically have been studied in some detail. Initial step यहाँ पर दिखाया है, उसमें क्या है कि hydrogen cyanide react with another cyanide. It goes to a dimer and then dimer react with another cyanide and then trimer is obtained, and this trimer is then turns into HCN tetramer, and this tetramer is basically we call it diamine malonitrile. इसको abbreviate किया जाता है DAMN से. So this intermediate tetramer is basically the main precursor of purine bases. Okay. There were two other scientists named Ferris and Odell. What they did that they used this hydrogen cyanide tetramer, and they used this tetramer by the photochemical reactions in two steps. After these two photochemical rearrangements of diaminomalonitrile, what they obtained was a compound named aminoimidazole carbonitrile, whose abbreviation I used as AICN here. This AICN compound is basically very important. It can generate other purines including guanine, hypoxanthine, xanthine and diaminopurine could have been produced in the primitive environment by variation of the synthesis from AICN. Basically क्या है कि न्यूक्लिक एसिड कंपोनेंट के सिंथेसिस जो साइंटिस्ट ने एस्टिमेट किया है या रिड्यूस किया है, इसको 3 स्टेप्स में कहा है उन्होंने. पहले स्टेप में हमने पहले बताया था कि उसमें क्या था कि HCN जो है उसका डाइमर, ट्राइमर और देन जो है वो टेट्रामर बना. टेट्रामर से आगे जो है वो 2 फोटोकेमिकल रीअरेंजमेंट्स के बाद आपके पास जो है वो IACN आया. अब ये IACN इज़ द सेंट्रल कंपाउंड और कह लेंगे की कंपाउंड है. फ्रॉम दिस की कंपाउंड वी कैन सिंथेसाइज अदर प्यूरिन्स, इनमें एडेनिन भी आता है. अपार्ट फ्रॉम एडेनिन वी कैन से दैट गुआनिन, xanthine और दूसरे प्यूरिन्स जो हैं वो भी बनाई जा सकती हैं. को क्या अभी ये वही बात है जिसकी जो हम पिछली स्लाइड पे कह रहे थे दैट इन द प्रीबायोटिक सिंथेसिस ऑफ न्यूक्लिक एसिड कंपोनेंट्स दैट इज प्यूरिन हियर. तो प्यूरिन के केस में क्या था, लास्ट और थर्ड स्टेप जिसमें आप AICN से इफ यू ट्रीट इट विद वाटर यू हैव 2 कंपाउंड्स. आई मीन द AICN और इट्स हाइड्रेटेड फॉर्म. सो AICN व्हेन इट इज ट्रीटेड विद HCN और C2N2 या जो है वो आइसोसाइनेट के साथ इसको ट्रीट करें तो ये these three पॉसिबिलिटीज व्हेन दीज आर रिएक्टिव विद दीज कंपाउंड्स तो आपके पास एक रेंज ऑफ प्यूरिन्स आती है जिसमें एडेनिन से लेके आपके पास गुआनिन या xanthine तक जो है ये सारी नाइट्रोजनस बेसिस कैन बी सिंथेसाइज्ड. Okay, and talking about pyrimidines, basically the main you can say the precursor that was produced, it was cyanoacetaldehyde. Cyanoacetaldehyde, it is in turn produced from the cyanoacetylene. I mean cyanoacetylene is a very basic compound. You can see structure later on the next slide. Cyanoacetylene basically it is on hydrolysis produces cyanoacetaldehyde. So this cyanoacetaldehyde is the main precursor of pyrimidines. Okay, then what we can see that this cyanoacetaldehyde can react with urea and it produces cytosine. If you react cyanoacetylene with urea then there is no detectable level of cytosine. However, when same non-volatile compounds are concentrated by evaporation in laboratory conditions, I mean the same conditions like in the primitive pools on drying beaches of early earth, large yields of cytosine were obtained. So these results suggest that a fissile mechanism for the accumulation of pyrimidines in the prebiotic environment. 2 चीज़ों की बात की है ना मैंने अभी कि आपके पास 2 कंपाउंड्स हैं. दे कुड बी 2 प्रिकर्सर्स. इट कुड बी cyanoacetylene, on the other hand it could be cyanoacetaldehyde. From cyanoacetylene, if it reacts directly with urea there won't be any detectable levels of cytosine. जबकि अगर आप बात करते हैं कि आप इसी को जो है वो नॉन वोलेटाइल कंपाउंड्स को अगर आप लेबॉर्ट्री कंडीशन जो कि प्रिमिटिव पूल टाइप कंडीशंस आप अर्ली अर्थ की देते हैं देन यू कैन गेट द साइटोसिन इन ऑलमोस्ट 50% यील्ड्स. तो दीज रिजल्ट्स इससे क्या आप सजेस्ट कर सकते हैं दैट द प्रिमिटिव वर easily are fissile, their synthesis was readily fissile in the prebiotic environment. If you go in the next slide, यही जो मैंने पहले बात की है, the same thing is here that you have this cyanoacetylene as a precursor. दो पाथवेज हैं आपके पास। अगर आप जो है वो इसका हाइड्रोलिसिस करते हैं, हाइड्रोलिसिस के बाद देन आपके पास एक इंटरमीडिएट आया है। दिस इंटरमीडिएट जिसको हमने जो है वो व्हेन इट रिएक्ट्स विद यूरिया, आफ्टर रिएक्टिंग विद यूरिया आपके पास एक इंटरमीडिएट आता है। दैट इंटरमीडिएट देन इट कैन बी ट्रांसफॉर्म इनटू साइटोसिन और यूरासिल। जबकि दूसरे पाथवे से भी अगर आप जो है वो इसको आइसोसाइलेट से रिएक्ट करते हैं देन यू कैन गो द अदर वे अराउंड एंड द सेम साइटोसिन एंड यूरासिल कैन बी ऑब्टेन्ड। बट फर्स्ट हाइड्रोलिसिस, एंड हाइड्रोलिसिस के बाद जो है वो यूरिया के साथ रिएक्ट करना, इससे साइटोसिन की जो यू कैन से द its yield is better. Next comes the prebiotic synthesis of carbohydrates. Most of the biological sugars, they have empirical formula CH2O, and it could be a multiple of N. And these carbohydrates, the first significant work was done by Butterworth in 1861, and the name this work is known by the name as Formose reaction. Basically, this reaction shows that a diverse mixture of sugars of biological relevance, they could be formed by the reaction of formaldehyde under basic conditions. However, Butterworth synthesis is very complex and it is not completely understood. And when we talk about Butterworth synthesis, we say that it depends on the presence of suitable inorganic catalyst with calcium hydroxide. It could be calcium hydroxide, it could be calcium carbonate, being the most completely investigated. And in that pre-model environment, calcium carbonate or calcium hydroxide were easily available. So in case in the absence of basic catalyst, little or no sugar is formed. So basic catalysts are the main component of these, are primarily you can say these are very important to catalyze the reaction. Some clays that were present at that times like kaolin served to catalyze the formation of sugars, including ribose in small yields from dilute solution of formaldehyde. So because this is the most significant work that was done on carbohydrates, so it has been extensively investigated with regards to catalysis, and several interesting phenomena have been observed. For instance, you can say reaction is catalyzed by glycolaldehyde, acetaldehyde, and various other organic catalysts. When we talk about Butterworth synthesis, like we talk about Formose reaction, so although it was very extensively studied, but there were many obstacles that scientists faced to confirm that the synthesis followed the same pathway as suggested, because one big obstacle was that Butterworth synthesis gives only long or straight chain or branch sugars, and this is the only way. I mean, from one pathway almost 40 different sugars can be identified in one reaction mixture. So this is not easy. Another problem that we faced, that was the condition of synthesis are also very easy, in which sugars can be degraded. That is, they can easily degrade on short geological times. So we can say that this Butterworth synthesis, though it looks appealing, but it is not that practical. Like you can say that at neutral pH, the half-life of decomposition of ribose is 73 minutes at 100 degrees Celsius, or you can say at 0 degrees Celsius it is almost 44 years. The same is true for other sugars. So you can say that if we use Butterworth conditions, then it is possible that the sugar that are synthesized can already degrade. So we can say that it is, I mean, the concentration of formaldehyde appear to be biotically implausible, because it is not very easy for sugars to synthesize and stay stable in these conditions. So this model has not been very successful to advertise or advocate the prebiotic synthesis of carbohydrates. One more thing, that these sugars that are synthesized, they can be stabilized by many ways. One method is that the sugar can be attached to another nitrogenous base, like we do in the synthesis of like nucleosides. Purine or pyrimidine can attach to sugar, and this way sugar stability is enhanced. So it could be possible that when the sugar is formed, then it attaches itself to another biomolecule, and then its stability is increased. However, it was still suggested that ribonucleotides couldn't be the first component of prebiotic informational macromolecules. This is the foremost reaction I was talking in the last slide. However, you don't need to remember each and every step of this foremost reaction. I just want you to have a close look on how from acetaldehyde he's proposed that tetrosis, pentoses, heptoses and even hexoses can be synthesized. So other material, all the material you have to remember, but this slide is just for your you can say learning. You can just have a look on this foremost reaction, and then it can help you to understand it better. Coming to the prebiotic synthesis of lipid and membrane forming compounds. If we talk about lipids, then at ancient times some amphiphilic molecules, like they have some lipid like nature, so of sufficient chain length, they can combine together, or you can say they assemble together to form small micelles or vesicles of lipid molecules. Normally today, I mean these days, what we say that cell membranes are universally composed of phosphate esters of fatty acids that are known as glycerides. So fatty acids are biosynthesized today by multifunctional enzymes or enzyme complexes, but these enzymes are only available today, but in ancient times the enzymes were not available. So what happened at that time, that eukaryotic or bacterial cell membranes, they were composed of largely straight chain fatty acid acyl glycerols, I mean the simplest straight chain fatty acids, and there were some other kind of you can say microorganisms that we call archaea, and these are composed of terpenide glycerol ethers. Basically these are also very basic unicellular microorganisms. Either type, be it bacteria or the other type of unicellular microorganisms, so the both type of cell membranes, they have been primordial lipid component of primitive cell. Primordial के बारे में पहले भी हमारी बात हो चुकी है कि that is very basic or earliest known, उसको हम कह रहे हैं. So most prebiotics जो है ना synthesis, they fail to generate large amount of fatty acid with the exception of hydrothermal vent reactions. ने ये बात की है ना कि जो बेसिकली आप यूँ कहने के अर्थ क्रस्ट में कह लें या बहुत ज़्यादा हार्श कंडीशंस में, उस केस में स्मॉल मॉलिक्यूल्स में असेंबल टुगेदर टू फॉर्म लार्ज अमाउंट्स ऑफ फैटी एसिड. अदरवाइज फैटी एसिड्स वर नॉट इजी टू सिंथेसाइज इन दोज टाइम्स. सो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जैसे जैसे टाइम गुजरता गया तो स्मॉल फैटी एसिड्स दे ट्राई टू कंबाइन टुगेदर और असेंबल टुगेदर टू फॉर्म द लार्ज स्ट्रेट चेन फैटी एसिड्स. Okay, coming to the nature of biomolecules. Biomolecules can be organic or inorganic in nature. When we talk about inorganic biomolecules, then there could be water, gases and minerals. Organic biomolecules, they are some large classes like carbohydrates, lipids, amino acid, protein, nucleic acid, vitamins. It could be enzymes. And biomolecules, if we categorize in a different way, we can categorize them according to the size of the molecules. They could be micromolecules and they could be macromolecules. Micromolecules, we can include the substances or compounds that are small size, they have low molecular weight, and they are found in acid soluble pool. And they include like amino acids, nucleotides, sugars are basic units of macromolecules. They are included in the micromolecules. And in macromolecules, there are four large classes of biomolecules. They are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins and nucleic acid. When we talk about the properties of biomolecules, then mostly if you see that they are inorganic biomolecules, but they are very limited amount, or you can say that they are not that much in However, biomolecules are mostly organic in nature. When we talk about organic in nature, and the main component of organic molecules is carbon, and the carbon, if they have four you can say that bonds, it should have tetrahedral arrangement, and they could be branched, linear or cyclic, or even some aromatic compounds could be there. And there are also other heteroatoms present in these biomolecules. They could be nitrogen, phosphorus or sulfur. About 30 elements are required by biological systems, and some are needed in large and some are needed in trace amounts. Basically, these biomolecules contain functional groups, and these functional groups could be the same in some certain class of compound, or they could be polyfunctional too. Just like when we talk about amino acid, they have carboxyl group or amino group. And similarly, in fatty acids, we talk about that they are a long chain of carboxylic acids. And biomolecules, normally they have high molecular weights, and their sizes are large, and if their sizes are large, they occupy a large of space, and they are three-dimensional compounds. And this shape is very precise, as you can say that this shape is very necessary for their proper action. Just like you know about enzyme, that if their shape is denatured, then they can't function, the regular function can't be performed. And in some molecules, the carbon, when it is connected to 4 different atoms, we say that it is asymmetric carbon, and asymmetric carbon is called chiral carbon. And in a particular biomolecule, you can say that mostly there are many stereogenic centers, and the stereochemistry of a particular biomolecule is specific. It is necessary for which is very important for its proper function. If the stereochemistry is not maintained, then biomolecule can't carry out its proper function. Okay, talking about the function of biomolecules, these biomolecules, like carbohydrates, they are used for energy, sport or recognition. In case of lipids, we know that cell membrane is made up of lipids, and cell membrane, apart from cell membrane, they can be used for energy storage, signaling and cellular metabolism. In case of proteins, enzymes are all proteins, and proteins are needed for the structural management, also recognition, transport. Pigments are also proteins, and signaling is done by proteins. Nucleic acid, you all know that nucleic acids are very important with respect to the hereditary or protein information, and also signaling is done using nucleic acids. These are some reference books, or you can say these are few links. I won't suggest that you just cram all the material written on these links, but just go through these links and read them for a better understanding. And there are few assignments that I want you to do, that is learn an example each of the 4 classes of biomolecules with their function. And the biomolecules, like 4 classes of biomolecules are there, and please arrange them in ascending order of their abundance of worth. And I want you to do these kind of activities as a homework, and kindly please judge how the Urey-Miller experiment, Open and Haldane theory are related. And please search for the beriberi, scurvy and pellagra diseases, and why these are affected by the riboflavin or vitamin B12 deficiency.